Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Canizar. We're back for another exciting edition featuring one of our 2019 Open Championships titleists. This time, it's going to be our singles champ, Mitch Beasley. And it's my understanding he's a pretty good storyteller and has had a pretty phenomenal career across a few different platforms. So looking forward to hearing some of those stories here today. First, let's introduce my co-host for today. As always, it's Aaron Smith.
Hello, Matthew.
Aaron, welcome back.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. How are you doing today?
All is well. Enjoying some interesting weather here in the DFW area. So perfect day to be inside doing a podcast. Again, a lot to talk about today. As always, some pretty good history with this gentleman. Mitch Beasley, part of tournament history as a champion, has a 300, has an 800, PBA champion. You said you just got done watching him win that title. So good times. We'll have certainly a great show today.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Yeah, always fun to take a trip down memory lane. Lane, get it, like bowling. Yeah, it was fun to kind of rewatch the show, get to enjoy that moment again. And of course, obviously the success at the OC over the past few trips to Las Vegas, the reason why we're here. So I think it's going to be a great conversation. Looking forward to it. And I think we should get it going.
Well, we've had the opportunity over the last month or so to talk to many of our defending champs. And for the first time in a very, very long time, they get to be the defending champs for an extra year. So maybe a plus side to a wacky 2020. And in Mitch's case, an opportunity to get healed up and ready to go to put that title on the line in Las Vegas in 21. But yes, I certainly agree. Let's get things going. Let's hear from Mitch and let him tell the tales of the OC and the PBA. Mitch, welcome.
Hey, happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. We appreciate the opportunity to learn a little bit more about you, which is really what these shows are all about. I already feel like I learned a bunch just the other day, and some folks writing in just to let me know that once you get you going, which is different than what we see on the lanes. You're pretty quiet out there for the most part, doing your thing, all business, but you're a great storyteller, and we have a lot of good questions for you. So looking forward to hearing all about that. First things first, what we typically do to start the show is catch up with our guests just about what things have been like in 2020. Of course, it's been a little bit different in the world this year. So everybody with a unique perspective, you're at home there. You've got the wife and daughter, but for the first time, you've kind of handled and had to deal with this COVID-19 stuff a little bit differently than all of our previous guests. So catch us up. What's been going on for you the last few months?
This year's been interesting with the COVID, and then, everything that happened with, Brunswick and everything. So, right before Tournament of Champions in January, end of January, right before Tournament of Champions, I hurt my hip and back, ended up having to withdraw there. So I had to have some spinal injections, some hip injections, a lot of therapy and stuff. So just got started healing good, started bowling, went and bowled regional, finished fourth, and then I bowled the mega tournament up in Columbus. And got home, and then about 10 days later, boom, here comes the cough and the fever and chills, and I had COVID. So that put a little crimp in the plans and the bowling plans for a little while, and finally getting recovered off of that really good now. So finally starting to feel normal again and get ready to put some good numbers on lanes again.
Now to set the stage just a little bit clearer for the folks too. Again, you're the defending champ in regular singles at the OC. You had an 8-12 series to win that title, and that was to follow up 300 at the same venue in 2017. So a good couple of years for you at the Open Championships. A longtime PBA member and a title out there on the tour in 2016. But your PBA career goes back decades. Also due in part to your time in the Air Force, which we'll talk about. And now that you have reached the 50 mark, as far as the age plateau, you're getting ready for some PBA 50 competition. And we had talked and you were headed to the Senior World Series situation that they set up in Florida. And, of course, that was canceled for 2020. That's how you ended up at the mega event in Ohio and got far more than you anticipated, in addition to some prize money. So glad you're doing well. You're healed up, and hopefully the family didn't have to suffer through that with you and took good care of you along the way.
Yeah, I got quarantined in the bedroom for about 2 weeks. So my only, existence or talking to anybody besides watching TV was getting to see the wife for about 20 seconds a day as she set food on the dresser and closed the door. So yeah, the COVID, COVID's kind of like having the flu. So it's not horrible, but it's just like having a bad case of the flu. It just takes a little longer to recover as far as stamina and getting your breath back. But yeah, it's like having the flu. So.
Well, we're glad you're on the mend. And the good news is you now have some more time to prepare to put your singles title on the line at the Open Championships. It was supposed to be happening pretty soon. September through November was going to be the time frame. Of course, 2020 not going to happen for us. So 21 will be back in Las Vegas, a familiar venue for you at the South Point Bowling Plaza. We'll talk about that down the road here a little bit in the show. But first, let's just talk about your background and your career a little bit. Again, longtime PBA member, a lot of success, many regional titles. But also kind of mixing that in with a very important, and we appreciate your service and your career in the Air Force. Tell us about that. I know it's because of the Air Force, right, that you even started bowling at all, based on where you were stationed. But I think people really appreciate this story and hearing, kind of the path that you took to get where you are right now.
Yeah, I came to bowling late. The only time that I ever bowled as a kid was when the parents gave my older brother some money to get us out of the house so mom and dad could have their quiet time without all of us. And I joined the Air Force when I was 19, just like 2 weeks after I turned 19. And I went to Germany as my first duty station. And while I was stationed there, it rained like the first 6 months I was there. So I was used to being outside fishing. I was on a tennis team in high school, played tennis. Was always doing something outside, and then it rained nonstop. So went to the bowling center and started bowling every day. And, I'm pretty competitive because my brother's 7 years older than me and a lot bigger. So, and he was great at everything. So I'm very competitive because of that. Always trying to beat him. So about 6 months after I started bowling, I started pot bowling the number one guy in the house. So, because he was the guy I wanted to beat. I didn't want to beat anybody else but him. And in Germany, at Rhein-Main, it's in Frankfurt, the highest average ever held in the house was 191. And that was held by two different lefties because the house was brutal. And so first summer league, I averaged 125. First full league, I averaged 172. My next year bowling averaged 196, so I was high in the house by over 5 pins. So that's how I got to bowling. I came from Germany, went to Little Rock, Arkansas, and was bowling there. And had only been bowling about maybe 4 or 5 years when a friend of mine, his name's Howard Bendanka, he was in weather in the Air Force, and he bowled regionals. And I didn't know anything about bowling PBA tournaments. I didn't know that there was, like the smaller tour, the regional tour. I didn't know that existed. And I didn't know you could bowl it as an amateur. So he was going to go to one. He said, "Hey, you should go." I was like, "All right, let's go." So I bowled my first one in Columbia, Tennessee, missed cash by 20. I bowled the next one in Billy Hardwick's in Memphis and missed the cash by 20. And then the third one I bowled was in Houma, Louisiana. And I sold 3 bowling balls to get entry fee. And I sold 3 bowling balls to get gas money. Stayed with my sister who lived 2 hours away because I didn't have any gas, because I couldn't afford a hotel room. And I didn't have gas money to come home on, and ended up winning it.
How about that? That's That is quite a story there.
Yeah, I wanted the ball pretty bad. So
I would say so. Now, it sounds like, are you self-taught with bowling? Is kind of, were you getting lessons when you were in the Air Force, or was it just kind of learning as you go and kind of picking things up, or did you have someone you could kind of lean on over the time to kind of help develop your game?
no, it was self-taught. Unfortunately, when I started bowling, all the really good bowlers, I would go to them and ask them for pointers or what to do, and they were like, "Yeah, you're good." So they would just brush you off because they didn't want to deal with you or help you. And then some of them didn't want to help because they didn't want you to get better and beat them. So for a long time, it was just, hey, the pro did this on TV yesterday. Let me try that. So I did a lot of that, which caused a lot of problems. Like, hey, Pete Weber's got a high backswing. And then I tried that and figured out that my arm doesn't go that direction. And tried what Marshall Holman did, and tried what Mark Roth did, and tried what everybody else was doing. And then finally kind of figured out, hey, I need to take a little piece of that person, a little piece of that person, a little piece of that person, what'll help, work with my body and what it does. So I got a little bit of shoulder problems. I had shoulder surgery when I was 13. I had a tumor taken off my shoulder blade. So my right shoulder doesn't go very far back. So I always wanted one of those really high, long back swings, and it doesn't go there. So, but yeah, it's all self-taught and experimentation. Nobody was, really good or coaching or anything around me when I learned how to bowl. So it would have been nice. Like today, you have all of these coaching tools and all of this great, stuff you can look up on YouTube and how this is supposed to work. And, there was none of that. So it was just, try it and see what happens.
Well, I say as a part-timer out there with a full-time job, it worked out pretty well for you. And of course, being in the Air Force gave you an opportunity to move around a lot, as you already alluded to a little bit. But I think one of my favorite stats that I saw was that because of that, your success in the regional events, you've got multiple titles in 5 of the regions. Is that right? You've had a chance to see the whole country and compete. And I think that's pretty neat to be able to go to really any event and see your name hanging at the end of the lane on that champion banner, to know that that you've gone coast to coast and had similar success.
Yeah, the only region I haven't won in is the Eastern region. So that's the only one I haven't won in yet. So it's nice having multiple titles and, pretty much all the regions except for one. So, that was very cool. And then I got to meet so many great people in all of the different, areas of the country. So, that's pretty awesome too. So any tournament I go to, I got friends there. So it's pretty awesome.
So no matter how well you bowled out there and how much success you had, I imagine the Air Force isn't really the kind of job where you can just decide that, you're done and I'm gonna quit this and I'm gonna go and bowl. So you had to finish out your time there. But talk about having that success, but knowing that you were committed for so many years and so much time before you can pursue the bowling part a little bit more.
Yeah, being in the military and bowling a lot, especially regionals and stuff, it's a little different because, I would work on my game and practice and work and start bowling really, really good, win a couple of titles, and then I'd go to the desert for 6 months, and then, it'd take a while to get back to bowling good after you got back. Then I'd go to the desert for another 3 months, and then I'd get back to it, and then have to go to Germany for 6 months. And so it was always a struggle to keep bowling good consistently all the time. And, every time I bowled good, I was lucky enough to win some regional titles or finish high. And then when I got to where I thought I was good enough to bowl on tour, I'd been in the Air Force for about 10 years, and you're like, well, I don't want to throw away 10 years because I'm 10 years away from having medical and, small retirement for life. So in I forget what year it is, probably 2006, 5 or 6. I was bowling and I was a recruiter in Texas, and my wife at the time, she called me up, and I don't know, we were, maybe a third of the way through the regional season, And that's when they were doing the exemption. So if you won the region, you won an exemption on the tour. And she goes, "You're leading." And I go, "I can't be leading." I'm like, "I've only bowled like 4 out of the 8 tournaments. I can't be leading." She's like, "No, you're leading." And I was like, "Okay." So I actually looked it up, and I was leading, and the deferment is for the next year. Well, I still had, I was like 2.5 years left before I could retire. So I called up the regional director, Pete McCordick, and asked him, I said, "Hey, do you think the PBA would defer my exemption if I won it? Defer it. And then, with that time and saving up vacation, it would be just about right to start tour, for being able to." And he called the PBA, and they said if I won it, they would defer it. So then I started working on my game a lot harder because I was just, kind of working on it because I was working so many hours being a recruiter. I didn't have a lot of time to practice, and I wasn't doing so. That year, right after that, I would put the wife to bed at 10 or 10:30, and then I would go to the bowling center and practice till 1. And I would come home, take a nap, go to work, and then the weekends, as soon as I finished my block, I would go to the hotel and go to bed because I wasn't sleeping during the week. And and luckily, I had to move from Texas to Seattle because I was moving up to Seattle to run the MEPS office up there instead of being a recruiter. And when I left, there was still 3 more tournaments left, and Del Ballard was second. He could win the last 3 tournaments in a row, and he still couldn't catch me in points. So
Very cool.
I bowled so good that year that I was dominating the points. So it was really nice to have that, and then to be able to retire and go on tour, which was a dream I'd had for years, which was pretty awesome.
So timing wise, everything seemed to fall in place for you, which is awesome. Again, you won the region, you got the exemption, they deferred you for a year, and then you were able to finish out the Air Force, and then the regional success continued with the big regional, the RPI, the invitational event. So success there, parlay that into the PBA tour, and then I don't want to say some struggles, but talk about getting out there finally. And what it took to elevate your game to get to where you did a decade later to finally hold that trophy up.
Well, it's a learning experience when you go on tour. And I'd taken 2 to 4 weeks of vacation a year for, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years to go and bowl some tour stops and kind of test my skills. I had done that for a lot of years. Some years I couldn't do it because I was deployed or I just got back from deployment, wasn't bowling good enough to even try. So I was used to bowling on tour and knew the atmosphere and knew everybody out there. But when you're out there on a day-to-day basis, you're trying to get used to the patterns, getting used to how they break down. Different houses have lots of different characteristics that you go through every year. And learning how to transition from one block to the next because everybody plays them a little different. They transition a little different every time you oil them. And, at the time, Ebonite had bought out track. So all the equipment was now different covers, different core. So I was learning new bowling balls, learning the tour, learning the patterns. So it was plus when I started tour, I was throwing it atrociously bad because I was running the MEPS, and it's a 3-person office, and I was the only person there for the last 6 months. And then they got 2 people in for me to train right before I got out. So I was working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I was throwing it so bad, I probably couldn't have cast in a regional the first couple of weeks. And so it was pretty bad. And I was traveling with Dave Leverage, and he was bowling fantastic. So I'd go to practice, and I'm working on my footwork to get to the line to be balanced, and he's already got 30 bagger, and I'm like, I can't stand up, and he's striking it well. So he'd be bored practicing really quick, and I'd want to practice for 20 games to try to get the bowling good. And then about 4 or 5 tournaments in, I kind of started to find my form and started to bowl good, and just missed a show by 2 sticks, missed another show by 20, got my exemption for the next year. And then I had problems probably 3 or 4 of the years I was hurt, about half the year more. So every time seems like I just got on the brink of making TV shows and really throwing the ball good and really knowing the patterns and what to do and all the changes. I'd get hurt, and then that'd be another 6 months, the year setback before I would get to throwing it good again. And, they change the patterns every year, changing the oil. So it, plus my knowledge from being out there every week, I've always been a tech guy. So I've always, studied cores, covers, chemistry, what the mass bias does when you put holes in it, how this moves, what RGs and differentials change to when you move the pin up, down, over, left, right. So I was doing that when I was on tour too. I was studying a lot of the guys' styles, why this works for him, what all the great bowlers do in general. So as I was doing that, and I was exposed to it on a daily basis instead of once or twice a year, for 4 or 5 days, my knowledge level grew a lot more about how to take what I have and make it better consistently for, on the next level where your RPM rates are so much higher. People play the lanes differently consistently. So, my knowledge level got a lot better. So that helped me get better and better. Like one year when we were doing exemption tour, you're automatically in a tournament, but you got to make the first cut to the top 32, and then you got to make the next cut and move on. That year I didn't miss a cut. I was in the top 32 every week because no matter what the pattern was, it was long, short, hooking, tight, because, I was really in control of my game and what was happening on the lanes, what was happening with all the equipment. So, just the knowledge level of always trying to learn, helped me be successful when, sometimes I was hurt or not throwing it as good as other guys or not as physically talented as the other guys, because, you're bowling against top level guys and most of them are in their prime. And I didn't go out on tour till I was basically 40. So, you never saw a tour guy ever make a cut or make a TV show after he was past about 37 or 38, and I didn't even go out on tour until past my prime. So
now after that time, you knew coming out of the Air Force, you'd have some income, some of the retirement fund. And so that was a guarantee for you. And then early in the exempt tour as well, prize funds were guaranteed, right? I don't know. Did it roll till when you made it out there? Did that take some of the pressure off, knowing that the bills were going to get paid no matter what? Or did you add pressure on because you felt like you needed to make up for some time because you were going out there so late in life?
Well, I felt like I needed to make a splash, kind of quickly, as you're, past your prime athletic years, because everybody's athletic years are from 21 till 35 when you're the best, strongest. With working out and taking care of yourself, you can extend that longer, but still the nerves, you're much better with nerves when you're 30 than you are when you're 50. That happens, like in golf, almost all of your great putters, as they get older in their career, they're not as good under the clutch situations, or their putter gets bad because of the nerves. So, I felt like I needed to do something quickly, and I thought that I would, and missed a couple of shows. And then there was several years I missed a couple of shows just by, a hit or two, or made one bad choice on one pair, and you missed the show by 40 because you made a bad ball change, and you split twice, and now you can't. Now it's just enough for you to not make the show. Or so, I thought I needed to make a splash early. I didn't, but I learned a lot in the process. So sure. I feel like I'm probably 2 or 3 months away from physically being in really good shape again because of being hurt and putting on some weight and having COVID and not being able to work out. So, but I'm feeling like, probably 3 months when I'm lost a little bit of the COVID weight and being hurt weight and stuff. And I'm, back to doing, lifting a lot and doing yoga a lot again is what I normally do. That with the knowledge I have of the bowling balls and how to play lanes and stuff, that I can still compete with anybody, even if I'm not quite, in my prime physically. So.
Now, you talked about making a splash, and obviously the win in 2016 at the Chameleon Championship, it was as big as a splash as you can make out there. And you talked about having the pressure, and as Matt alluded to at the start of the show, I went back and kind of rewatched that, and you had to throw some big time strikes to make the finals, and then after that 7-10 in the ninth frame, had that 7-pin staring down you for the win. What was it like, obviously after all the trials and tribulations and, kind of going through some 2 steps forward, 1 step back with injuries and things here and there. What was it like for you just to finally get to that pinnacle and, get to enjoy that moment?
Yeah, I mean, that was really good after a long time. If my dad had been there, I'd have been bawling tears out because Dad had actually, when my dad only had one leg and he lost his leg to cancer when he was 17. So we never did anything sports-wise together. We fished a lot together. But he went to a lot of the regionals that I went to after he had retired because, he wanted to watch me bowl and watch me succeed. So, with all the hard work over the years of putting in, of learning, of working all the time, learning, putting in the effort, all the practice, experimenting with equipment, doing stuff. It was pretty special to be there and to be there. I'd missed at the Tournament of Champions, which I thought was a great chance to win until they destroyed the left lane. And there I felt that a really good chance, and especially with the 4 people that were on the TV show. I thought that it would probably be me and AJ in the finals. That's just what I thought of how the lanes broke down as you bowled on them with practice and stuff. I thought it would be us 2 in the finals. The problem I had when we started the telecast, one of the approaches were extremely slick, and the right lane where they set the light tower up for the TV show, I couldn't actually see my target on the right lane. All I saw was a big glaring thing from the lights. So the first shot of the terminal in the right lane, I couldn't see my target. So all I saw was this big blinding glare. So I yanked it, and I had to make a 3-6-10. I'd only made, I think, 2 3-6-10s like the whole World Series. I could make every split I looked at, but I couldn't make a 3-6-10 for some reason. It was driving me nuts. So I was worried about that. And then the second one I threw on the right lane where I missed the headpin, I almost fell down because I slipped so bad. So during a TV show, you see me wiping my shoe really hard every time trying to get some grip so I could stop. And I moved my target on the right lane far enough where I could see a spot out of the glare. So I was aiming at 2 different spots down the lane on the 2 different lanes so I could actually see my target on the right lane.
Wow.
So once I kind of got that, figured out after about 4 frames, then it was kind of like, I gotta get going or I'm not gonna, be in the finals. And I had a little bit of trouble on the right lane because I was looking at a different spot. I had to make a couple of adjustments to get the ball to shape up because, the break points, moving your target forward and back kind of changes your angles and changes the break point a little bit. So once I got it figured out, and I actually probably maybe the best shot I threw of the whole TV show was the first one I threw in the 10th of the first match. Just absolutely as good as I could possibly throw it on the right lane to strike, and then the next one was good and struck. So, it was a couple of big shots to get to the finals. And then once we started the finals, I I finally had a good feel on both lanes of what to do. You know, I got to where I was getting good footwork. I figured out where to aim on the right lane, and then it was just about making good shots. And I had just two thoughts running through my head, and that's what I concentrated on every shot. So, and then, you know, luckily they were falling really good after the stone 9 to start.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make a little adjustment after that too. So after that until the 710, and the 710, I threw it really good. I got it pushed a little bit hard through the front with the adrenaline. So it pushed like another 6 or 8 inches or a foot longer. And instead of flushing up 710, then I think my heart dropped into my shoes when that happened. So that was it was like, I didn't know how much I was up because I wasn't really paying attention to the score. I knew I was up, and I was just, I'm going to throw the best shot I can every time. And then hopefully it strikes, and that'll be good enough. And I let it go, and I was like, yeah, that's good. And then was like, oh, no. So
you you made the career transition midlife, and it took a minute, and then you overcame some pretty serious injuries, some head-to-toe injuries. You fell off a ladder at one point, and now we've been talking about your 2016 PBA title at the World Series, a dream come true for sure. And again, things have gotten progressively better for you since all of this started, leaving the Air Force and going on tour, and you were able to parlay some of that momentum into a whirlwind romance and a marriage early on, right? Maybe one of your top 2 World Series memories, I hope.
Yep.
And you guys met. We'll hear about that in a minute at the World Series of Bowling. And of course, then a pretty neat job that you had with track and EBI over the last few years as well. So I want to hear about that, and all of this really happening again in the recent 5 or 6 years, really. So it took a minute to get comfortable, to get back to where you should be to be competitive, and things just have been going really well for you. So dial us back to 2014, and then we'll make our way to your OC career for the second half of the show here.
Yeah. You go back to the ladder incident. That was probably 10 years ago. I fell off a ladder, shattered my right wrist, tore all the tendons out of it, broke the bone that connects your thumb to your wrist, tore all the tendons down it. So I spent a lot of time in a cast and a lot of time in braces and a lot of time soaking my hand in ice water and hot water, doing therapy. And actually the year that happened, which was probably about 8 or 9 months after I broke it, I bowled the World Series using a big brace and throwing 13-pound equipment. So the World Series that year, I threw 13-pound stuff and cashed in 3 of the 5 events at the World Series. So
that's awesome.
That was pretty interesting. I didn't know you could strike that much with 13-pound stuff until I had to throw it. And then in 14, I was bowling the World Series and met my soon-to-be wife in Jelimar, and got introduced to her. She was helping Vice do all of our pictures and stuff. And then she was first alternate at the World Series. So she was first alternate to bowl. So she was there waiting to see if she was going to get in. And so when she come by, she was coming by to practice. She only had a couple of balls with her. So I was kind of helping her with some surface changes because she got introduced to me, and went and drilled her a couple of balls in case that she could get into the World Series. So she'd at least have something, 3 or 4 options to start with. And unfortunately, she didn't get in. One of the guys bowled like 3 frames because he knew he was hurt. He bowled like 3 frames and withdrew. So she didn't get in the World Series for somebody that knew that they were hurt before they even tried to bowl. So, but it turned out good. It was my worst World Series ever for cashing and stuff, but my best ever for love. So the only cash or cut I made was bowling with her in the doubles. So that was pretty good.
Well, now Aaron's face just lit up twice during that story. First, because he also likes to throw that 13 pounds of fury. So he's out there at league last night, and he's now got some motivation knowing that it can be done. So he's ready for the next step in his career. And of course, he's also a sucker for a great love story, as we all are. So great to hear how that all turned out for you. Of course, in Gilmar, a standout left-hander for Venezuela. So some international success for her. We see her all the time, of course, on PWBA Tour and at international events, world championships and such. A very talented player in her own right. So quickly, again, a whirlwind romance. 1 month later, you were married, and it quickly went to becoming the second best bowler in the family. I'm sure you're okay with that. But it didn't take long for you guys to make PBA history together. You faced off for a PBA regional title again. One more awesome part of the love story before we get to the Open Championships. Tell us about that. You guys met up in a title match for a PBA regional title. It kind of reminds you of an old episode of Full House, and the boyfriend and the girlfriend facing off, and what happens? Do you throw it and let her have it, or do you go after it?
Well, as the second best bowler in the house, I got called Mr. Angelimar for a while because right after we got married, we were working on her game a lot, and then she won 2 regional titles right away and went to the shootout in Las Vegas, in Reno, and then she ended up winning all of that and being on TV. So I was Mr. Angelimar for quite a while, and so I had to work on my game to finally make a TV show so that I could be Mitch again instead of Mr. But we bowled. It was up by St. Louis. We were bowling a regional, and I didn't even think about it. But no husband-wife has ever bowled for a title in the PBA. So we were bowling, and I forget the name of the house, but we're bowling on Cheetah, which is not my strong suit playing short patterns, but I do know how to play it, so I do well at Cheetah. But I led by about 350. She was second, and she was 300 ahead of the next person. So I had a 350 pin lead on her, and she had a 300 pin lead on the third place person. So, and then in the step ladder, she beat, I forget the guy's name, but she beat him like 260 to 170. And then she took pity on me when we started the championship match. I was worried because that was the only pair in the house I couldn't strike on. And I had shot, I think, 150 on it the 2 times I bowled on that pair. So I ended up throwing a different ball on each lane and managed to start front 6. And then I went split. So if she would have, doubled her turkey coming down the stretch, she'd have beat me. But she went, I think, like 7 pin, 7 pin, 7 pin, 7 pin, 7 pin. And I ended up winning by like 10. So I knew if she won, I was going to get crap. And I knew if I won, I was going to get crap. So either way, I was going to get crap from everybody. So.
Well, that was 5 years ago, and you guys are still married, so obviously no hard feelings there. So good to hear that. And again, that kind of was the beginning of this upswing for you in your career, being that this is inside the OC. We'll talk about some OC stuff now. Going to 2016, again, it started with the PBA Tournament of Champions TV show runner-up finish for you. It ended with the World Series title, but somewhere in between, you found your way back to the Open Championships again. Your career there started in 1995, and kind of, again, because of your busy life and such and the PBA Tour, it was a one and done for a while there, 1995 in Reno, and then you didn't return until 2005. But in 2016, in the middle of all that success, you had the opportunity to throw the last shot of the Open Championships that year, which is pretty neat. Officially closed the 129-day event. Not quite the way that you had hoped. I believe it was a split in the final frame, so not a whole lot of smiles there, but pretty neat experience, I would think, which you then, again, were able to parlay the time in the spotlight to 2017, where you bowled a 300 game at the OC, at South Point. And again, things have gotten progressively better. But first, tell us about the Open Championships and what it means to you and your thoughts and, your understanding of the history of it and kind of the early part of your career with the one visit in 95 to the first year of the National Bowling Stadium and then the few years that followed kind of sporadically.
Yeah, I went to the first Open Championship. It was in Reno, and I had a little bit of bad experience with somebody that worked there, and made me really mad twice. And I'd gotten yelled at by somebody because our pin spotter is supposed to be watching our pair had left. So I came out of the pit to go talk to the person on the next. It was like 4 pair over to get our lane fixed, and they were yelling and screaming at me. And then the next day I got sick, and they wouldn't let me go to the bathroom. They were going to disqualify me. So I got really mad. And the person that was there, I won't mention the name, but they weren't very nice, which luckily they're not affiliated with anything anymore. So, but I didn't go back for several years because of that. I was really mad because I was sick and I couldn't go to the bathroom. So then I always wanted to go back. And so when it's got to where I was, out of the Air Force and I wasn't busy and I could bowl again, then I was, on tour, and then you weren't allowed to bowl the Open Championship while you were on tour. So, and then as soon as they changed the rules that allowed us to bowl it again, then I went back and started bowling in 2005. So, and I'd always hoped to win an Eagle, but I always thought I would win an Eagle in team and not singles, because typically at the Open, tweeners tend to be the style of bowlers that have the most success at the Open, because most of the time they hook and most times they're tough. And the more you hook it, typically the worse it is at nationals, except for, there was a little 3 or 4 year period where the lanes they softened them up a little bit more like league, where all the telephone numbers came out for a few years. So I never thought I would win it in singles. I always thought it would be in team. I thought I would be the low guy on the team to maybe win a championship there, not in singles. So, but we got a great team where everybody works together. And I've been on several teams that nobody worked together. Nobody did the right things. You say, hey, we're going to play here. We're going to, move left next game to this zone, and second frame, 3 guys or 2 arrows left of where you're supposed to be. And luckily last year when I won singles, we were bowling doubles, and I was staying on top of everybody else. And I hooked the ball more than anybody else on the team by a good bit naturally. One of the guys on the team can hook it as much as me, but that's not his natural shot. And I was playing with everybody else. And after doubles, several of the guys came over to me and were like, you really need to make a change because you're not striking. And I'm like, well, I've been throwing a bowling ball where I could stay on top of everybody else and help everybody else and not wreck it for everybody else. So I'm like, I've been staying on everybody else. I was like, right now I would be at least an arrow further left with a different bowling ball. And everybody was like, well, it's singles, do whatever you want to. I said, okay. So I switched balls, moved an arrow left, and just started striking like crazy. So
some good karma there built up.
Yeah, we got a great team. And actually, we got a team I think can actually win a couple of championships. We've got the right mix of personalities, the right mix of styles. I think we got a great team. We got a little bad deal at team. This year we had a pair that was a little funky, but that happens at the nationals. You never get the pair you want to. So, but I think with our team, I think we can win some titles. And I had to sweat quite a bit because actually I thought I was going to shoot 300 again the last game. First game I should have shot 300, but I knocked the doo-doo out of the ball and went high for 6. In the last game, I thought I was going to shoot 300 again and shoot 840. And then I rang a 10 pin on the right lane and the messenger missed it. And then I stone 9 in the 10th. So the 812, I was really worried about that because I didn't know if it would hold up or not. So I had to sweat that for quite a few weeks at home, checking every day to see if I was still in the lead.
Well, first things first, I just want to apologize for our predecessors, and I'm glad we got you back at the Open Championships, and now you're, of course, part of the history of the event. We have the restrooms in the speech now, so everybody knows opposite ends of the center.
Everything is way differently run now than it was then. It was very run like the military, and there was one person in particular that was not a nice person that happened to be there, but luckily they weren't there very long. So,
well, we do our best now. We want you to have a great experience. And going back to the 2017 event again, you mentioned your team and what you guys have been able to put together, and you bowled with some talented players. I believe one of those gentlemen was Chad Kloss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He also owns a 300 at the Open Championships, also in the team event. But in that event, 2017, we're at South Point getting comfortable. You shot 300, the first one in team competition that year, 1 of 10 at the entire event. So first, take us there, and then we'll talk about 2019 a little bit. But again, you've now had some time to understand and appreciate what the OC is all about. You mentioned the potential for winning an Eagle, but to deliver in that regard in the team event to help your team the way that you did, talk about that 300, that moment, getting up there, finishing that off, compare it to some of the other big moments you've had in your career. What is the feeling at that time of now being part of history in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's very special at the Open when you get to shoot 300 there. I'm always nervous to shoot 300, whether it's the 6th time in league for the year or whether or not it's at the Open. But it's probably fairly close to throwing shots, stress wise to win a tournament. So it was funny because team event is always the one that hooks the most and tends to be the toughest. So that's the one that's the hardest for me. The singles and doubles, because the pattern's a little longer, it seems to be easier for me than the team. And I had struggled the first 2 games and made a ball change on the fill ball to a really, really weak drilled Mako. And I'd put the mass bias by the axis to kind of kill it. And I threw it on the fill ball, and it shaped up and struck, and I went, oh. And what I didn't know was the other guy on the team behind me said, Mitch is shooting 300 next game. Ooh. But he saw the ball reaction and my expression, and he told everybody else I was going to shoot 300. And I didn't know it. So it was pretty fun to shoot the 300, especially with the other guy saying I was going to shoot 300 before I did it. So.
All right. Well, there you go. There you are entering tournament history. You had 682 in that team set. Went on to have a pretty good event, 1997, with 690 in singles. And then, of course, you got to come back the next year. You were a celebrity for the first time in your OC career, announced as a 300 shooter. 2018 didn't go so well for you. Actually, your lowest all events total of your career, but you bounced back in 2019. So maybe it was the pressure, the spotlight, maybe just an off year. It happens. We won't dive too much into 2018 unless there's a story to go with it.
Well, it's really weird because in 2018 it was my worst year ever at the Open, and I shot 150 the middle game of all 3 sets. And one of the 150s, I never missed the pocket. I left 2 7-10s and a 4-9 on the left lane and never struck on it, shot 150. So I opened 3 times on the one lane, never missed pocket. And so it was horrible for me as far as score-wise and bracket-wise, because I lost every bracket shooting 150 the middle game of all 3 sets. It was horrible. But
so 2019 comes around. Of course, we're back at South Point in Las Vegas. You're comfortable there. You had the big moment the year before, or the visit before, but 2019 didn't start off so well for you either, at least by your standards. By my standards, 612 and 600. Absolutely ecstatic about that. But things didn't get off to the hottest start. You talked a little bit about it a few minutes ago, and kind of it was more about the team effort, and working things together before making the key ball change for singles. But tell us about a little bit more about 2019 and coming out of the gates and really how things opened up for you. You made another run at 300, so we're talking about joining a short list of guys with multiple 300s at the OC, finished with 297, and then went on to stay calm and finish off that set. So a lot happening there from the slower start to the huge finish. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, the start got off to a really bad start. And the ball hooked really early and really violently. And I didn't get lined up into the pocket until probably the 7th frame. And I split just about every shot until then. And I finally managed to get my angles right and get a ball that was finally soft enough I could get to the pocket. And I got a double, and then in the 10th frame, I 7-10 for I think 130. So I start the 2019 off with a $130, just shaking my head, going, "What in the world is going on?" And then I managed to shoot 240, 220, or 240, 230 to manage to shoot 612. So just absolute horrible start to it, and then the start to doubles was almost the same way, except that I had one good lane and one bad lane. And because you don't get a lot of practice, I misread the left lane when on our doubles and singles pair, the two lanes were over half an arrow apart. They were way different. And I misread the left lane, and I split on it 3 times in a row. So I think double in the 10th for 160, or turkeyed in the 10th for 160. The first game of double. So I'm like, really? I mean, am I going to shoot 130 or 150 every game, every time I go to nationals now? So it was not a good start to doubles either. And then finally figured out the 2 lanes, watching everybody and getting a feel for it. And then, once I got a really good feel for the pair, and then once everybody else was like, yeah, move left, free wheel, do whatever you want to, then I knew exactly what ball I was going to go to and where to throw it. And it just because everybody on the team was throwing really good shots. I mean, everybody on the team in singles was throwing the ball great, which helped tremendously because I got a great read watching all of their balls go down the lane. So when one guy's ball hooked early and went high, the next guy, because everybody was throwing it good, his ball would hook early and go high too. So every time, I was watching everybody's shots, I knew when to move. I moved 3 times a game when I shot 800, all 3 games. So I made a lot of moves when I shot 800, watching the other guy's bowl. So a lot of the credit to the 800 goes to the rest of the team because they were throwing such good shots. I got to make a lot of reads off of them. So that's one reason why I think, our team, we got a really good chance to win some Eagles in team.
You started that set pretty well.
Sorry for whoever gets me for doubles every year.
You started pretty well there with in the 240s, and then another run at 300. Again, I think that's where your experience comes into play. There's a great question in the chat about turning off your brain and not letting a few bad shots get to you. But a 240 start and then the front 11. Of course, most players, they wish to be in that position once in a lifetime. There you are again, twice in 3 years, making the run at 300. Came up short with 297. That's a perfect opportunity to have a mental collapse, to let the knee knocking get to you and have it all fall apart. But you didn't do that. You finished strong, finished with 269. I guess tell us about that 12 shot for 300. Again, It could be nerves, could just be a bad shot, a bad read, and then being able to bounce back and finish strong for 8-12. And I understand you didn't know what the leading score was at that time either. So a lot happening all at once, and a lot to kind of handle mentally for sure.
Yeah, I was throwing the ball really good going up to the Nationals, which starting 130 and teaming, 150 or 160 turkey, and to get that in doubles, it wasn't showing. But once I got a read and the ball doing the right thing, I was real comfortable. The big thing about, when you're in pressure situations and you're trying to turn your brain off, you need to have one or two keys when you're throwing the ball good. And that's what you focus on. You never focus on the result. You focus on one or two keys. And typically my keys will be something like, slow and low. I need to be slow with my feet and I need to get really low at the line. Or I'll have a particular feel to create the right ball reaction, whether it's really rolling it forward or a little extra pressure on the ring finger as I'm going through the target, or, a lot of times the better I throw it, the later my release is. So it waits longer before I start to rotate the ball. So I'm rotating the ball almost out in front of me instead of behind me, which keeps the ball on the target longer and makes the ball a little more lively. So I've always got one or two thoughts when I'm throwing the ball. And anytime it's a pressure situation, all I'm trying to do is concentrate on those two thoughts. Whether it's, if, for a couple of weeks my second step's too fast, I'll be thinking second step extra slow, and then, open the hand through the target when I'm really trying to be soft with the ball or keeping the ball rolling, when I don't want it to be too angular, and I'll be like, second step extra slow, open the hand through the target. And they're very simple thoughts, but that keeps your mind doing the same thing every shot. So every time you get in a pressure situation, it needs to be whatever your key is for that day to throw it good. You never think about the situation or what the result will be. Anytime you do that, you'll throw it horrible, or at least I throw it horrible every time I think about the situation or what it means. I normally have two key thoughts, and I'll just keep running those two key thoughts through my head and try to repeat the feel of the last shot.
I think that's some excellent advice there for the folks at home watching. Thanks to Melody for dropping that question in the Facebook chat. Mitch, you talked about, obviously the run you were on that last game and thinking about, making a run at 300 again and walking away from South Point with 840. And, 812 still a big number, but, 20, 30 pins there definitely, probably made the tough a little bit weighter, and you talked about that. Was there any specific players out there who made a run that, all of a sudden your phone started blowing up, you started getting all the texts like, hey, this guy's making the turn at this score? Was there ever a moment prior to the end where you got really worked up about this might be the end of my run?
I had a couple of guys text me. I think Kurt Pilon, he was on a big run, and somebody was there watching and texted me and said he's fixing to run me over. And a couple of guys texted me and told me Buttriff was going to run me over. And I got a few texts from guys saying, man, guy shot 290 or 280 the first game. He's got a great look. You're sunk, stuff like that. But 840, because I didn't even know what the number was until right at the end of what was leading or anything. But I figured 840 would be a lot because, 840, unless it's been one of the years where they were a little easier, 840 is definitely a lock every year. So when I added it up and I was looking at 840, I was going, I can go out for 840. That's a lock. And then the messenger missed a 10 pin and I stoned 9 in the 10. So the 812, I knew it had a really good chance because typically the number's somewhere around in there, 80 to 810, 820. So I figured it had a really good chance, but I knew there was a lot of good bowlers the last, 3 to 5 weeks. So I was sweating a bit.
So now, before even talking about Eagles, you had just shot 800 at the Open Championships. You had the 300 time before that. Very short list of people. Talk about how special that is to have those two accomplishments really on the biggest stage in bowling. I know it's a little bit less significant if it doesn't hold on to win, but in that moment, to have accomplished both of those things, a dream come true for most bowlers. Tell us about those feelings, and then we'll talk about the wait and then the eventual phone call to find out that you had won.
Yeah, for me, typically, I try not to think about it too much while it's happening. It's like it all hits you after it's over. Because if I think about it when I'm bowling and repercussions and all that, bad things happen. So, if I'm bowling, even if I'm bowling brackets, I don't ever look at the brackets until the last game or something, or close to the end, because I just want to concentrate on throwing the best shots I can, and things will work out from there. And but yeah, I mean, afterwards, the first time that they announced me, they announced me as having the 300 at Nationals, and they announce you every year. It's like, oh wow, whoa. So that's really cool to have your name announced. And then I was really looking forward to it this year to be announced singles champion and get my eagle, but I have to wait till next year. But now I get to be reigning champion for 2 years. So.
Well, now there's a lot that comes with the whole experience. You already mentioned the phone calls and the texts about guys who are getting close and the scoreboard watching. And for you, it was just a few weeks of waiting to find out and the nerves and such. And then it finally happened. So tell us about that phone call. That's one of our favorite moments at the event, is to call and let you know that it's official. And of course, there's plenty more to follow after that. That's just one step in a process that will continue really until you're done with your next appearance. But that phone call had to be pretty awesome for you.
Yeah, that was really, really, really good. So I had seen on Facebook where a couple of guys were getting a call already, and I think I was the last one to get the call. So I was like, is there something going on? Well, I haven't been called, because everybody else has been called. So maybe there's something going on. Maybe I actually didn't win. What's going on? So it was pretty awesome to get that call and finally have it official that I won. So
well, we do go in order of the events for next time. So we start with the team event, double singles, all events. Just kind of that's the progression. So and also depending where everybody lives, but in the months since,
my place tricks on you when you're last. So
I totally understand. But you mentioned you want to win as a team next time. That'll be the first phone call that we make. We'll get that out of the way, and the celebration can begin. And as far as that, what did follow for you in the Clarksville area? Of course, big bowling community up until last year, of course, with EBI leaving town. But as far as the Eagle and the presentation and just everything that went into that part of it, tell us about that moment and when did it all really click for you, if it has, that you are an Eagle winner?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty special when I got back and after it was announced and everybody congratulating me on the Eagle and everything. So, it probably, I don't know, it'll probably be really nice the day I get the Eagle and I put it on my little stand. So it'll be really nice when I get it and get to look at it every day. So I'm waiting for that. So,
well, what's the holdup? Where's it at?
I have no idea.
Uh-oh. We're gonna check on that for you. We got people on it. We'll have an answer for you by the end of the show.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be presented in league, and then COVID happened, so it probably was something that was in the works and then got canceled. So
we'll double check on that. The Eagle part is something that happens at home with your friends and family, and typically, and then for our part at the event, which you'll have to look forward to, is a special march out, an announcement, a speech, the whole deal. You get all eyes on you as you go to the lanes, and a watch presentation. You'll see the giant banner hanging over the lanes with your name on it, of course. And then finally, the designation on the scoreboard next to your name, letting everybody in the building know that you are a champion. So again, the process goes all the way through. Then the title defense will happen. Either way, we're going to talk to you when it's all over to find out how it went or how it feels to be in position to be the first bowler to ever win back-to-back singles titles. But that was something you were hoping for in 2020. But at the same time, there were some injuries along the way that you mentioned that maybe make this extra year, this extra time, a positive for you. So you can go in to the title defense 100% ready to go.
Yeah. It kind of, I was really working hard for doing the rehab and all the stuff to be ready for nationals. But thankfully, with everything that happened, hopefully next year, barring any injuries, I'll be healthy and I'll be in much better shape and be throwing the ball really good next year when it happens so I can defend. So I'm really looking forward to trying to get the team Eagle because we got a really good team. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'm really looking forward to the presentation and the walkout and the ceremony. It's going to be really awesome, especially, with the wife there and the daughter there to get to, see everything is pretty special.
Well, there is a trend now, the last couple of years of winning in back-to-back years. So you might as well be that guy. Just go ahead and talk to the team. Let them know you want to share it with them. It makes our job easier. It makes the story much better too.
You might as well get your second, third Eagle in the same year. Hey, win the team and defend singles. That would be a beyond special thing.
Hey, Mitch, you've talked about this team quite a bit. Can you list off the team members for us?
Now, unfortunately, I am the worst person on the planet with names. So Chad's on the team, and I can tell you everybody's faces and everybody's bowling style, but I'm the worst person with names probably on the planet. So I don't want to mess up names. So
fair enough.
So, but
you just know the right to strike a lot.
We have such great chemistry, and everybody works together. It's by far the easiest team I've ever been on, as far as just everybody meshes together. The styles are great together. Nobody does anything crazy to mess anybody up. So as long as we stay together, I think we'll definitely win at least one, maybe multiples throughout the years.
I like that. A bold prediction here on the podcast.
You will have the opportunity to defend that title in the venue that has grown to be special and successful for you. Again, we're going back to South Point in 2021, and it's been great to you the last two times. When does the preparation begin, mentally, physically, and how hard is it to really put what happened in the past behind you, knowing, again, going back into the same venue where things have happened magically for you?
Well, typically, I always prep for nationals probably somewhere, depending on what tournaments are leading to it, between 2 to 4 weeks in advance. I'll put in a lot of practice work, and if I have access to, lanes and oilers, which I normally have, but I don't, situation's a little different right now. I'll put down short patterns that the ball really hooks violently coming off the pattern for team, because team always, the pattern is tougher and it hooks quicker and harder, which is something that, for me, I like the longer patterns because I like to throw the ball a little slower and roll it more. So the longer patterns tend to suit me better. So the short patterns that are a little bit more violent, I have to work on softening the hand and really being up the back, working with my equipment to which balls come off the pattern the right way. And you can only have a few balls there of picking the right ones to go, together for the team, and then, a different, kind of set of balls for doubles and singles. So I'll start that, somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks out, and really start working on the patterns 2 to 3 days a week, especially for the team, because that's my worst pattern. The first game's always hard for me because in team, the ball's so violent down lane. typically year to year. And my ball likes to change directions way too hard. So I'm always trying to be softer, more up the back, get the ball more rolling. So typically I take at least one ball that's got a lot of games on it that's kind of dead, so it doesn't change direction very hard. I'll work with a couple of bowling balls to try to figure out which one is best. One will have a pin kind of close to axis, so it's real early and soft, where I can be a little bit more aggressive. And then, like the Mako that I took that year, I drilled it Super Week. It had a 6.5-inch pin to PAP with a mass bias next to the axis. It went really long and was really soft on the back. And once I switched to it, it was like, oh, there's the right shape, and managed to shoot 300. So some years you manage to pick the right balls, because every year at Nationals it's different. You get a different surface or a different place. The patterns change every year. So what might be the perfect ball last year is not the perfect ball this year. So I'll prep about 2 to 4 weeks in advance, work with equipment, and really work on softening my hand and throwing it straighter. That's probably the worst thing I do. I'm pretty good at throwing it straight, but I'll put in a lot of time in being very soft and throwing the ball straighter.
So now, previously, as a technical director with track and EBI, you had some different opportunities there. Of course, the company has since moved on to transition with Brunswick, so no longer in your area.
Yep.
So you have chosen to stay in the Clarksville, Tennessee area. And Lamar has a great job. You said things are a little bit different for you in that regard. You've got the pro shop there behind you in the garage. Talk about that aspect and how that changes things and what's ahead for you as we get back to normal. Events are beginning. You now have a senior competition to look forward to as well. So a lot of positives certainly ahead for you, but some changes and some differences as well. But just kind of sum it up and what's ahead for Mitch Beasley.
Well, I was technical director for track since 2007. So I did all the technical stuff for track, was in ball development and testing. And with track, there's only 2 track bowling balls ever made until now that I haven't thrown. So there's not a bowling ball you could, ask me about the tracks ever made that I couldn't tell you about. What the core was, cover, reactions, how to drill. I was in charge of blueprint, teaching the drilling school. So I taught the drilling school. At every one of our, clinics, when we brought all of our pros in, we went over ball reaction. I taught lessons. I'm a silver coach. So I was really involved in everything from all of your technicals on how to drill, how to create ball reactions, to ball repping on tour, to, doing all that for many years. I did it for a long time with track, and then I transitioned, was doing it for all the EBI brands, along with Powerhouse. And so that was very special, being able to be able to teach, because I really like teaching. So I love teaching drilling school. I love giving lessons. I love teaching. So that was very rewarding doing all that. And then the transition happened in the buyout. And then, they chose to go in another direction because they already have technical people to not bring me on board. So I was talking with a couple of companies about working with a couple other companies in the bowling industry, doing something similar. And then COVID happened and everything shut down. And, a lot of the bowling ball companies, the only thing that's been saving them is the, international Asia sales, Korea and Japan and stuff. Their sales are still strong. So most of the bowling industry and the company's been hurting real bad. So, they kind of don't, everything's on hold as far as, moving positions with another company. So we'll see what happens with that. The wife, she's got a great job with Sarah Cannon. They do cancer research, so she's data coordinator for them. So we decided to stay in the area because she's got a really good job. Girl likes living in the area, got lots of friends here. I like it here in Tennessee. So we'll kind of see what happens. Now that I'm getting healthy, I've been hurt for so long. It feels good to wake up and get out of bed and be able to walk and be normal. So me and a friend of mine, we play golf together, and he's on my bowling team. We were actually discussing have kind of a mini gym set up in part of my downstairs, and we were actually discussing today about which gyms to start going lifting at. So right now, not working and finally being healthy, I can start putting the time in and effort into my game and the health wise and putting it into the body to get it back to where it used to be before I got hurt. Because before I got hurt, I was lifting and doing yoga every day. So, I was strong and flexible, and actually my rev rate had went up a pretty good bit from what it's been the last 4 or 5 years. So it was kind of closer to back when I was in my 30s. So it was kind of like, hey, I kind of like this. And then, but, I've been looking at some other things. I had a couple of job offers where people wanted me to move to take over a few things, and it was just not really a good time for the family to move. So I'm, debating on what's, exactly where I go from here with COVID, because there's, a lot of the opportunities right now aren't available, so I'm going to work on me and my bowling, and we'll kind of see what happens. I may end up taking a position or getting a job close by, or I may go back to bowling full time, or hopefully something opens up in the bowling industry again where I get to teach and do all the things I love to do, bowl and travel and stuff. So we'll see what happens when, everything settles down and everybody gets to open up, all the bowling centers get to open up, and the companies get back to being profitable instead of, hanging on. So.
Well, we're glad to see things on the mend again for you physically, and it sounds like a lot ahead for you. We look forward to seeing what you have in store for us on the lanes, not only at the Open Championships, but in all PBA competition, PBA 50. And Aaron, any final thoughts for Mitch? Great insight today. Some great stories along the way too. Always an opportunity to learn and hear, again, all the things that we don't get to see on the scoreboard. So much appreciated there. But any final thoughts or questions?
No, just, a great appreciation for joining us on the show today, Mitch. It was definitely fun to learn a little bit more about you. And of course, kind of the stages of your career from, serving this country in the Air Force to, being the weekend warrior on the lanes, some of the trials and tribulations of going through injuries to ultimately finding success on the PBA and at the Open Championships. So just a big thank you for joining us. And it was a big boost of confidence for me to hear how much you could strike with 13 pounds. So I'm looking forward to my next league setting to see if I can channel some of that. So definitely appreciate the time and joining us here today.
Well, it was my pleasure. I love talking bowling, and it was the highlight of my day. So anytime you want to kill some time, just let me know.
Excellent.
All right, Mitch. Well, thank you very much. We'll check on that eagle for you. Say hi to the missus for us in the meantime. We'll be in touch about that. And of course, all the steps that now will come with being the defending champion at the OC. We'll definitely plan on seeing you in 2021. Aaron Smith, again, great stuff for today. A little bit of a slower week next week here on Bowl TV. Just a couple of shows, but tell us what's coming up for the bowling fans out there. And what we have lined up as far as guests and such.
Yes, the PWBA podcast will be off on Monday, as will Bowling Explained on Wednesdays. But a show we originally were supposed to have tomorrow is going to be pushed to Tuesday, September 8th, 1 p.m. Eastern. That is a special edition of the Sport of Bowling Show with former USBC President Andrew Kane, discussing some of the recent equipment specs changes with Deputy Executive Director Jason Overstreet. And then Thursday on Inside the OC, we will bring in another great. Why can't I think of who it is? It's Daryl.
It's Daryl. It's one of your favorite guys, Daryl. Donut Daryl.
But Daryl Carry-On. There we go. Who shot 2 300s at the OC will be joining us next week. So just the 2 podcasts, but we'll definitely make the best of them and be another good week here on Bull TV.
All right. We're looking forward to it. Mitch, remember to check out that show on Tuesday. Good stuff coming from Andrew Kane about all the changes for USBC this year and some of the rules. So looking forward to that as well. Folks, we appreciate everybody tuning in for today's episode of Inside the OC. A great chance to catch up with Mitch Beasley and see how things are going as he gets ready to defend his regular singles title at the USBC Open Championships in 2021. That is going to do it for today. We covered some pretty great stuff. Go back and check it out if you missed any of today's show. But for now, that is the news for now. We'll see you on the links.